In 1607, Virginia became the first permanent English colony in North America. The first colonists came to Virginia to search for gold. When they realized that there was no gold there, many started plantations on the rich soil of the Tidewater. A plantation is a large farm on which crops are raised by workers who live on the farm. In the Southern Colonies, most plantation workers were indentured servants or enslaved Africans. Many plantation owners, or planters, became wealthy by growing and selling cash crops such as tobacco and rice. As large plantations filled the Tidewater, new colonists arriving in the Southern Colonies had to settle in the back country farther from the ocean. To get more farmland, colonists often moved to areas where the Powhatan Indians lived. The Powhatans did not want the colonists to take over this land, and they fought back. Many colonists and Native Americans were killed in these conflicts, known as the Powhatan Wars. As Virginia grew, colonists wanted to have a voice in the laws of the colony. In 1619, colonists created the first elected legislature in the colonies. A legislature is a group of people with the power to make and change laws. The legislature was called the House of Burgesses because the representatives in Virginia's legislature were known as Burgesses. Colonists elected the Burgesses, but only planters and other white men who owned property were allowed to vote or be elected. Nearly all members of the House of Burgesses were members of the Church of England, or the Anglican Church. In 1632, the House of Burgesses made the Anglican Church the official church of Virginia. Puritans, Quakers, and others who were not Anglican had to leave the colony. Between 1632 and 1732, English colonists settled 4 more southern colonies. The colonies of Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia were all created for different reasons. The colony of Maryland began in 1632 when King Charles I of England gave land in North America to Cecilius Calvert. Calvert, who's also known as Lord Baltimore, was Catholic. Like Puritans and Quakers, Catholics in England were often punished for their religious beliefs. Calvert hoped to make Maryland a refuge for Catholics. A refuge is a safe place. In 1649, the government of Maryland passed the Toleration Act. The Toleration Act was the first law in North America to promise that all Christians could worship freely. The new English king, Charles II, wanted to start another colony in the Southern Colonies. He hoped that the settlement that he made would help keep out France and Spain. In 1663, Charles II formed a new colony south of Virginia called the Carolina Colony. Colonists first settled the southern part of Carolina. The southern part had good farmland, excellent harbors. Planters built rice plantations in the Tidewater. The city of Charlestown, now called Charleston, grew large and wealthy. The northern part of Carolina had few harbors and was not as good for farming. It grew more slowly than the south. In 1729, Carolina became 2 colonies, North Carolina and South Carolina. In 1732, England's King George II started another colony to keep the Spanish and French away from South Carolina. He gave this land to James Oglethorpe, an English lawmaker and army officer. The new colony was named Georgia to honor King George. Oglethorpe wanted Georgia to be a place for poor people and debtors. A debtor is a person who owes money. In England, debtors who could not pay the money they owed were put in prison. Oglethorpe thought it would be better to let debtors start new lives in Georgia. He offered them a free trip to Georgia and small farms of their own. James Oglethorpe made strict rules for his colony. Colonists could not elect their own legislature, for example. And to make colonists work their own land, slavery was not allowed. Some colonists did not like these rules. They thought that without slavery, they could not make as much profit as other colonies were making. Later, many of the rules were changed. Slaves were brought to work on plantations. Georgia became a wealthy colony like South Carolina.